Okay, now I just want to talk about loan repayments and amortization schedules. And I'm a little bit embarrassed because I've actually shown you most of these concepts so far. So what I'm going to do is go to one of the examples in the main slide deck, example 8, on page 124, or it'll be roughly page 124 if I delete any slides by the time I give them to you. And we're going to talk about a simple example. Oh my God, this is an old example. We're going to borrow $150,000 to buy a house. Someone's agreed to lend us the money. Hey, look, we're borrowing $150,000 to deal with our working capital requirements for the business for the first year. We can be borrowing for any reason, right? The interest is 6% compounded monthly. Remember, compounded monthly, that interest rate is greater than 6% per annum. The loan is to be repaid at monthly intervals over 20 years. What's the monthly repayment? Now, this solution here on the slide gives you a solution using the formula. We can go off and do this in Excel, and I think we probably should, just to see how we do it. And you know, Excel's present value function, you've got the same thing on your scientific or business calculator, so you can put these numbers in there. Now, the original loan is $150,000. The interest rate, if this is interest rate per annum, is 6%. Now, remember, we can't actually do any calculations with that 6%. What we want to know is what is the interest rate per month. It doesn't take a huge brain to work out that if it's 6% per year, it's going to be 0.5% per month, right? Just divide by 12. And let's just go back to the original example. The loan is to be repaid at monthly intervals over 20 years. So the term of the loan is 20 years. Well, that's pretty useless because we've got the interest rate in months. We want to know how many months that is. So a more sensible way is to say the term is 20 years times 12 months, right? 240. Okay, we can use the formula that we've got in the main slide deck, or we can just say, hey, I want to know what my payment is. Okay, so the rate is 0.5%. The number of periods is 240. The present value, the amount that I'm borrowing, is $150,000. Future value, when it's finished, I want it to be paid off, so I want that to be 0. And I'm going to make the first payment at the end of the period. Okay, so let's make that 0 as well. Okay, these, I don't know why, I know why it does minus signs, but so I'm going to have to pay $1,074.65 a month in order to repay that loan. Is that what the main slide deck's got? Yes, it is. Awesome. Good. Okay, let's just prove that. And by proving that, we're actually going to be doing a loan amortization schedule. So loan amortization schedule is actually a fancy name for this thing. Let me just see. In the main slide deck, we've got, I like this loan amortization schedule. This is the way finance people do it. Accountants make it a little bit complicated. Okay, so each year we're going to add some interest, we're going to take off a payment, and we're going to have a closing balance. Sorry, each month. How many months are we going to have? 240. Thank God for Excel. Imagine doing this by hand. Oh, that's only 60, so let's... about there somewhere. A few more. Okay, there's 240 months. This is going to be a long table. Okay, the opening balance is the amount that we borrowed. The interest is the opening balance. Remember, these are all months, right? So the interest is the monthly interest rate times the opening balance for this month. The payment is what we've just worked out. And the closing balance is the opening balance, add the interest, take off the payment. In fact, let's tidy this up and get rid of all these dollar signs. They annoy me. Actually, one other thing that annoys me is this use of commas for thousands. It's very American. We use spaces, of course, but I'll live with that. Okay, so there we've got it in cents. We know the opening balance in the second period is the closing balance from the first month. Copy the formula down. Hopefully, once we copy this down, that payment, I didn't copy it down properly. hopefully once we copy this down, we're going to have a loan that is paid right down to zero. And notice in the early years, let's just check that it's down to zero. Yes, great. Notice in the early years, because the interest is higher in the early years, it's obviously higher because the balance is bigger, we're not making a big dent in the loan, right? We're only getting it, sorry, I've got that wrong way around. Yeah, we're not getting it down by a lot. But as you see, as the balance of the loan gets smaller, the interest is getting smaller. So less of this payment has to cover the interest, and more of it gets to hit the balance. So we're only making, $340 hits early on, but once we're a few years in, every time we make a payment, now $500. And towards the end, there's almost no interest at all. So towards the end, most of your payment is reducing the loan. This is the change in loan, change in balance. So, basically the slope's pretty low to start off with, and then it comes down like that. So if you can make some payments up front, you get that balance down, you start reducing some of those interest payments, and there's a snowball effect, because the payments you make after, a few extra dollars of those go to reducing the closing balance. So that thing is actually known as a loan amortization table. Let me show you how accountants screw it up, because I'm an accountant. What accountants do is they actually introduce an information column that doesn't actually affect the calculations. And it's actually what I had there, the change in the balance. Let's just tidy this up to make it look a little nicer. And what they basically do is they say, hey, this is the payment, this is the interest, so that's the amount that's coming off the loan. And they just stick that column in there as a bit of information. Okay, and that helps accountants do their journal entries and their recording. But the only real columns are the opening balance column, the interest, the payment column, and the closing balance column. They're real numbers. Okay, opening balance plus interest minus payment gives you closing balance. This is just an information column. So it's just there to say, hey, I'm too lazy to work out the difference between the previous two columns. Why don't I have the table work it out for me? Okay, and that is a loan amortization schedule. Pretty straightforward.